Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We're focusing in on a very important yet basic part of the narcissistic personality disorder, and that is the experience of a false self. A false self is a mask or a public persona that the narcissist develops as a way to interact with others and really, in essence, is created in order to protect themselves from earlier trauma. Now, the false self is an artificial persona that individuals create early in life to basically protect themselves from re-experiencing developmental trauma, shock, or stress in close relationships. So it's like a buffer, if you will. The individual who might have been tormented, might have had been sexually abused, might have had parents who were not available, who were alcoholic, who were rageaholics, who were violent, who created some sort of trauma in the environment. Perhaps there was suicide attempt, there was fighting, there were affairs. So this child was exposed early on in life to what we call traumatic events in their family. So the child, in order to continue winning this parent's conditional love, would create then a false persona to try to keep peace, to try to create some semblance of harmony, to create a functionality in a very dysfunctional system. So the child would develop this in order to adapt. They needed to do this in order to survive. So they created a false self. But even though underneath that false self was a individual, a little child who was scared, who was afraid, who felt fearful, who felt traumatized by what they saw and was lacking good role models and a good mentor in order to raise them up appropriately, help them handle emotions, help them get into school, help them to focus, provide a safe environment. Perhaps there was a lot of inappropriate information around, sex tapes, things that were a child is not supposed to see. This is exploitative of a child's innocence. So it is what is also called a loss of innocence. And in essence, the child then might develop this false self in order to take care of a parent, protect a parent, or protect both parents. There oftentimes is though one parent or the other who the child feels that they need to protect or they need to take care of. So it's a very backwards situation and very sad. So the outward self can appear very brazen, very polite, very bold, very aggressive, very assertive, and oftentimes larger than life. The false self can be developed to overcompensate for their feelings of inadequacy. If you see the very short, fat person who is very bossy, and I'm not, I'm not, berating people who are overweight, but I'm talking about people who are abusive to others because they don't feel good about themselves. These can be narcissistic. The individual who is overcompensating for a lack of security, a sense of security or self-esteem. Someone who does not feel good about themselves, who wasn't able to develop self-esteem themselves, overcompensates with this grandiose, oftentimes you might even experience it as charisma or this wonderful individual. We hear about these stories of, the Charlie Sheens, the different movie stars who are very charismatic or seem to have be very attractive, yet they're very abusive to people in their life. This is a sure sign of narcissism, where they just hurt and cheat and exploit others and really cause a lot of drama and a lot of chaos because of this insecurity underneath. That's a true sign of narcissism. And I don't point a lot of fingers and I don't do a lot of bashing, but I think it's important that you understand what narcissism looks like, so and chances are after watching this channel you probably do get a good sense. And my whole goal here is to build people up so that they're empowered and not to bash the narcissist. But if we see the individual who is wielding a lot of violent behaviors, a lot of hostile behaviors, bigger than life, very machismo, overly manly, and womanizes others. This can be narcissistic behavior. This can be a false self. So oftentimes there's an individual underneath all that who is yearning for love, who is yearning for attention, who is yearning for that which they did not receive. And instead of processing it and, doing that inner work and that inner journey and saying, wow, I was exposed to a lot of traumatic information growing up, or exposed to a lot of traumatic relationships growing up, or I didn't have a mother figure that was very strong, or I didn't have a father figure that was very strong, or I felt fearful all the time because there was alcohol in the family, and my parents were blacking out, or they just were on a whole nother emotional plane because they were inebriated after martinis. My parents were doing drugs, or whatever the situation where you felt fearful that there was not a mature, stable individual around to protect you and be there for you. That will then create a false self, which is then meant to compensate for the insecure, traumatized private self. So we see this false self. And the issue is that the inner insecurity is what oftentimes causes this self-centeredness. And it's the false self is created as a response to this. And so if you're interacting with a false self, there's always a private real self that's going to contaminate or is going to conduct the devaluing and the discarding. So when you see this false self fall away, we call this exposing the narcissist or exposing the psychopath. You get to the real bottom line, who this person is, who they really are, what are their true colors. Are they truly authentic? Are they loving? Or is their relationship based on certain conditions? Pleasing them, only if you do this will I love you. Only if you do that, if if I love you. There's not this unconditional love, which is so important for a parent to have for their child. And furthermore, for that child to become their greatest version is to experience that unconditional love. So it's very important that you give yourself that unconditional love and love yourself in times of good or bad, goodness or health, rich or poor, loving yourself all the way, so that you've got that for yourself in hard times and good times. It creates a real sense of gratitude, I think, on a daily basis when you have that unconditional love. But oftentimes, you see a real lack of gratitude coming from a narcissist abuser. And I think that is what is so sad, because they tend to take advantage of others, exploit others, be very narcissistic, and be very highly consumptive of people, be very exploitative of people, and lack a lot of gratitude. And so I think it's very important to have gratitude in your life. Yes, have gratitude for the narcissist individual. Be grateful that they have their presence and their impact in your life, that they were able to encourage you or challenge you in ways that if you had not experienced them in your life, you were able to be challenged and move forward in opening your eyes and opening your heart to your own internal goodness. And then furthermore, seek to experience that goodness in more people who are not narcissistic, because yes, there are people who are not narcissistic. There are people who are very encouraging, loving, happy, who are just pleasant to be around and not highly judgmental, and who you can create more of a bridge with rather than a chasm or a gulf. So realize that oftentimes the relationship with a narcissist will also create a codependent or supply individual's sort of false self to go and appease them. And so if this has occurred also, realize it's okay to release this and just be who you are. Be a human being. Be yourself. Be and have a balanced life. Make it okay to say no. Make it okay to say no when you mean no, yes when you mean yes, and don't get caught up in living a lie because chances are that's not what is going to fulfill you. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.